Today you are really being led by Honorable Stian Hazen. He's just said, and you didn't hear him, Watinta Bafaz. Honorable members, thank you very much for what I believe was a constructive engagement on matters pertaining to Parliament. And allow me to first respond to a few matters that were raised. On the matter of legal drafting, I agree that this is a scarce skill that must be cultivated. And we actually have been discussing this over a long time. I remember even in the third Parliament. But clearly there's an appetite on the part of honorable members, and that is why I reported in my main address that 12 private members' bills were actually submitted by honorable members and honorable members from different parties, and not necessarily, of course, passed already. On transitional arrangements, Honorable Dlagude, be assured that the administration has commenced with the legacy report under the leadership of the Acting Secretary to Parliament. And this will include the area of transitional arrangements for the 6th Parliament. Honorable Killian, I agree that training for members should be ongoing, not only an activity confined to the point of the induction training at the start of a new Parliament. The costs of subsistence allowances and transport for some staff. This is a matter that was raised, I think, by the Honorable Waters, and I believe that it has been dealt with by Honorable Smith, because the money had been allocated to their respective cost centers instead of the Women's Parliament. So by the time the report for the third quarter was finalized, this was not yet corrected, which then caused the variance of 40,000 rands between the amounts reported during the third quarter and fourth quarter. So, as Comrade Honorable, thank you very much. The Honorable Smith has indicated that it is being dealt with by the Joint Standing Committee. Let me remind honorable members of the formula for funding of political parties, which is something I thought members would be aware of by now. I thought you would be familiar by now of how the issue of funding of political parties is dealt with. Political parties are allocated funds in proportion to their representation in the House, as provided for in the Constitution. And I think it's Honorable Chief Whip that has repeatedly advised honorable members that the thing for them to do is just to make sure that they come back in larger numbers. With respect to the variance of money withheld from political parties, the correct amount withheld was only 199,000 rands. 199,000 rands, not 190 million rands. No, it's 199,000. Not 190 million. There's a great difference between the two. So, Honorable Waters, you have not quoted the correct amounts. Well, maybe we should look at the document and correct it. With respect to the quarterly budget allocation, honorable members, in this regard, please note that the responses on the changes to the budget allocations will be submitted to the Joint Standing Committee as promised last week by the Acting Secretary of Parliament. We note the concern concerning the Treasury Advice Office. I'm aware of the separation of powers between the Treasury Office, Advice Office, and the CFO. We continue to submit the request for this unfunded mandate, and we will do so in this year's adjustments budget. Honorable members, speaking at the first sitting of Parliament as the first democratically elected president of a free South Africa, and that was on the 24th May 1994, President Nelson Mandela stated, and I quote, "We place our vision of a new constitutional order for South Africa on the table not as conquerors, prescribing to the conquered." Let me repeat what Madiba said. He says, "We place our vision of a new constitutional order for South Africa on the table, not as conquerors, prescribing to the conquered." We didn't do that. We're still not in the mood. We speak as fellow citizens to heal the wounds of the past with the intent of constructing a new order based on justice for all. Close quotes. Those words marked the final death knell of an unjust political system based on race and the birth of a new constitutional order in South Africa. One of the key outcomes of the liberation struggle was the country's constitution, which bears the very heavy imprint of the vision and the values which President Nelson Mandela and Mama Albertina Sisulu and others of their generation stood for. Nelson Mandela understood the importance and significance of Parliament and therefore had a profound respect for this Parliament, as it has had for him. This respect is personified in a conversation that former Speaker Frini Jinwala recalls with Madiba just after she was elected as Speaker, and I quote former Speaker Jinwala, who talks about what Madiba said. He said, and I quote, "You must run Parliament in a way that carries on what we have done in negotiations, where we have tried to bring all parties on board. We've tried to involve everybody so that we take the whole of South Africa into this new arrangement," close quote. And here we're quoting Frini Jinwala in conversations with the Mandela Foundation on the 14th June 2008. Both Madiba and Masisulu were concerned with giving life to the Constitution and achieving its stated aims. They both understood that Parliament is not only the vanguard of democracy, but is also primarily responsible for improving the lives of millions of our people. It was in this spirit that we embarked on the process of defining and securing the features of our freedom. which are strong democratic institutions with the necessary checks and balances. Oh, you know this cough. Cheers. Which are strong democratic institutions with the necessary checks and balances to ensure our democracy's endurance and resilience, even when faced with adversity and challenges. We owe Tata Nelson Mandela and Mama Albertina Sisulu a great debt. We should strive to emulate their visionary leadership, humility, and above all, their belief of being selfless servants of our people. May we and generations to come, Mam Kaul, derive strength from them and act in the knowledge that there is a possibility, a potential of a Mandela, a Sisulu in each of us. That potential is there if we commit to never forget that we exist to serve the people, not to destroy one another. Let us, in our words and actions, be it in the chambers of parliament, the executive, or wherever we find ourselves, act with integrity and honor, as Madiba and others, including Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, did in service to our people at all times. Let us work together to continue the work of Nelson Mandela and Mama Albertina Sisulu to fulfill the promise that the sun shall never set on so glorious a nation, to quote from Tata Madiba. I thank you. Iyouth kukhulunyiwe ngayo hlengwa. Wena weneli nje. Thank you, honorable members.